Welcome, everybody. This is it. We are here for the first live on perfectionism. And I'm talking about perfectionism all the time, but it's usually small, short videos, snippets here and there, or blog articles about perfectionism. But now it's the first time that we're doing 1 hour, full hour, talking about perfectionism. Amazing. Well, you have the honor to be on the first one, on the premiere to be here, and we are going to discuss about perfectionism. A few practicalities before we start. Right now, I have two laptops in front of me and two screens, which means that I am multi-streaming. If you're watching via Zoom, I have to let you know that there is a technical problem with the camera, and there's a chance, probably, that the camera will freeze. If this happens, then I would advise you to go into another platform, maybe Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn or YouTube, and you continue watching the live discussion about perfectionism from there, if it happens. If it doesn't, then we're very lucky. Another practicality is that we are going to discuss today about perfectionism, and I would like this to become as interactive as possible, which means that I'm going to share tips and knowledge in order to understand more about perfectionism. But at the same time, feel free to pop in the chat and write, your opinion, your experience, maybe, like me too, yes, no, comments, or of course, questions. That's the purpose actually of being here today. And the last thing that I want to say is that today it's going to be a discussion with me and a very diverse audience, which means that all of you out there, and it must be altogether in all the platforms, more than 200, 300 people, all you out there are a very diverse audience. So people that may know too little about perfectionism, they just heard it, or maybe they're curious to know more about it, or maybe they have a different idea about perfectionism, and people also that they know a lot about perfectionism. And to be honest, I think I hear about perfectionism very often lately. I talk about it with my colleagues. I talk about it with people from my environment. And not to mention, of course, that I talk about it a lot with my clients in our private sessions. So we are here today and we are going to talk about perfectionism. And I can say from all this talking about perfectionism, I have become an expert on perfectionism. And I can tell you why I'm saying that, because I decided to make a list of all these characteristics of perfectionism. And even though I reached many times the point that I said, well, I have a complete list of characteristics, still I could make more. Still, I could think of more. So there are many things connected with perfectionism. And that's why we're here today. That's why we're here today, because perfectionism is serious. There is a connection between perfectionism and our mental health. Perfectionism is costing us. It makes us suffer. It gives us a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And actually, I have a few studies in front of me, and I'm going to share them with you. One study that says that perfectionism is a major risk factor for anxiety and depression. Another one, they found that people diagnosed with social anxiety disorder had higher scores of maladaptive perfectionism. And I'm going to explain what is maladaptive perfectionism in a while. Another one, perfectionism displayed medium to large positive relationships with overall burnout and symptoms of burnout. So you can see that the price that we are paying for being perfectionists is really high, and we cannot just let it go. We want to understand perfectionism. That's the first step, to understand perfectionism, so that we can be able to prevent it, hopefully, or to recover faster from mental health issues that we are suffering from, anxiety or depression. So the first thing that we are going to discuss today is, and let me see whether there's, all right, is what is not perfectionism. Because people sometimes, I usually meet two kinds of people. People that they believe that perfectionism is something good and they're proud of it. Well, I'm a perfectionist, it's like, yeah, of course, something really nice to say. Yeah? but also people that they really deny. No, 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 I'm not a perfectionist. I am nothing like that. Because they think that perfectionism is something else. They think that perfectionist is somebody who has OCD, like he's obsessed with details or with routines and rituals, or with binders and typos, finding typos in grammar, for example. But that's not perfectionism. First of all, that's not perfectionism. Perfectionism is not being flawless and never making mistakes. Perfectionism is not delivering perfect results. It's not perfectionist is not a person who everything that does is perfect. No, that's not what we mean. Perfectionism is not being confident all the time and making the right decisions and knowing what is the right decision. That's not what it is. Perfectionism is not being liked or being confident all the time. That's not perfectionism. What we mean when we're talking about perfectionism is stress. The stress we have because we feel that we are not enough. The stress we feel because we feel that in a moment now, in a few months from now, where I'm going to do something really wrong and I'm going to be told off. It's this guilt that torture us all the time, and we feel that we have done something wrong or we have done too little. And perfectionists usually think in all or nothing. Either I give my all or I give nothing, or I haven't done nothing. So there's a lot of stress there, and perfectionist tends to be the treadmill of our life. We keep running, and we keep offering and giving, and we never reach an end. We never reach a point where we say, well, I've done enough. That's what's missing from somebody who is a perfectionist. The word enough. I have done enough. I am good enough. And that's why they exhaust themselves. And that's why they burn out, because they keep trying without any break. So that's what is not perfectionism. What is perfectionism is what we said about the stress. Also, perfectionism is a coping mechanism, and why we need to cope and what we need to cope for our inner critic, the inner critic that says that you haven't done enough, the inner critic that says that you should have tried more. Because of this inner critic, because of this guilt, in other words, we can find many words about the inner critic. Because of this guilt that we're feeling, we are pushing us even more. We're beating us up even more. And that's the coping mechanism. So in our head, we say, well, I haven't tried enough. Therefore, I am going to do something more. Therefore, I don't need to sleep so many hours. Therefore, I don't need to, have lunch. I can still keep working. And we keep offering ourselves, and we keep offering our time and our energy. So perfectionism in reality, and you can understand the relationship with burnout. The more perfectionist I am, the more chances I have to burn out, because I give and I give and I don't take care of myself anymore. So eventually, the emotional part of perfectionism is that I am seeking for approval. I am seeking for something or somebody to tell me that you're enough, you're good enough, and you have done so much. And I appreciate what you have done. I approve of you. I accept you. What's happening now, and now we're going into the difference between the toxic perfectionism and the healthy perfectionism. What's happening right now is that in the toxic perfectionism, a person keeps running and keeps doing things, expecting all the time this approval and this acceptance to come from the outside, from people that are from their environment, people that they're watching them work and deliver and offer their time and their energy. In the healthy perfectionism, still we are trying, and still we are pushing for growth and for excellence. Of course, we're not saying just drop perfectionism and become a lazy, sloppy person. Not at all. We still want to become a better person. But in the healthy perfectionism, this acceptance is not sought outside. This acceptance is something that is being cultivated internally. We know that we're enough, and we can say to ourselves, well, I've tried enough today. I can take a rest. I've done enough, and I don't need to prove my worth every day. That's the difference. That's the main difference between the toxic perfectionism and the healthy perfectionism. And that's what we're trying to do by gaining this awareness. So the emotional part of perfectionism is that perfectionism is a cry for acceptance. If I try, if I do all these things, are you going to accept me eventually? Am I going to be enough for the world, for the people that matter to me eventually? So I need to take a breath. Tell me, how is it for you? Does it resonate? Does it make any sense? Um, did you have, did you know about the difference between the toxic and the healthy, the maladaptive and the adaptive perfectionism? How was it for you? Let me see. Yes, more compassion, indeed. It's all about compassion. And the toxic perfectionist usually thinks that compassion, when people are showing compassion to them, or he needs to learn to talk with compassion, they believe, toxic perfectionists believe that this is pity. Yeah, no, this is pity. That's, yeah, you don't really mean when you say, well, you've tried enough and you need to take a rest. Yeah, this is, you're pitying me. You're sugarcoating my failure. So this is what a toxic perfectionist would think. And usually toxic perfectionists don't have a good relationship with compliments and with positive comments. And yeah, and it feels that when you get validation, exactly as I read in Facebook, it feels patronizing, exactly patronizing, sugarcoating, pitying. That's what a toxic perfectionist hears. While in the healthy perfectionist, we already say that to ourselves, so it doesn't feel strange, it doesn't feel like patronizing. It makes sense that we need to have that part of ourselves that is self-compassionate. So it doesn't make any it doesn't sound like weird or different. So can you please tell me a few characteristics? Oh, there's another comment. I like that, and it says that I've seen at least two movies recently with the notorious "I am proud of you" son, and it shows that the search of external validation is largely cultivated. Yes, indeed. And I am going to talk about that later on because we're going to talk about the roots of perfectionism. And again, there's been a lot of emphasis on external validation. To a and there's nothing wrong about that. The wrong thing is that we have forgotten about the internal validation. We have become dependent on other people's opinion and validation and approval. We have been dependent on the thumbs up of other people and the likes. What I Let me see, I can relate with wanting to be seen and appreciated for what you're doing, and Hearns, you are doing so much to get that approval. Exactly. I this just didn't relate it before to perfection, it's just more to inner child hurting. Yeah, indeed. So there's a lot of need for approval for imperfectionism, and now we're making that connection, because that's why I call it like a treadmill, because you keep trying for approval and you get it because there are many people that they say, well done, you did it, here's your degree, here's your promotion, but still it doesn't resonate. We don't It doesn't stay. It's like the frying pan that, like it doesn't, nothing gets stuck on that. It just goes away. So yeah, we don't, it doesn't stay with us. I didn't know the difference between toxic and healthy. Yes, exactly. How can you teach healthy perfectionism to your children? Okay, so we are going to talk today more about the characteristics of perfectionists. First, we need to understand it. If we have time, we're going to talk about that. But there's many things that we need to discuss today. But that's a really good question. And thank you also for taking care of the next generation, because we are going to be the teachers for that. I can only experience good perfectionism when I believe the acceptance that I give myself. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Perfect. I can only experience good perfectionism when I believe the acceptance I give myself. Anything that people can say, you can have, I don't know, 100 people, 1,000 people telling you how great you are, how amazing you are. But still, if you don't believe it, it's like zero people. Maybe you're going to be happy one day, 2 days, sure. But then the third day, it's going to be like, yeah, what's the point? I'm not good enough. I need to keep trying. We need to believe it. That's fundamental. If society was more inclusive, then we would not need this validation and this fitting in, trying too hard to not be ourselves in the end. Well, I see that, and I think that there's a lot of responsibility in society for sure, and yeah, and social media and our parents. So we're going to talk about that. So, but I really get what you mean. Athens, ooh, nice. Does perfectionism and workaholic as a mechanism of suppressing emotional wounds count? Yes, indeed. And perfectionism, as we said, is a coping mechanism. So we are coping with something that is emotionally challenging, which means that something that we haven't processed, and something, as we said before, a deeper wound of not acceptance. And that not acceptance can be very different from one person to the other. I don't feel acceptance because I didn't hear from my parents, for example, or you are not feeling this acceptance for your completely different emotional experience that stems from your childhood. But still, there's something that we cannot process or something that is really challenging. And in order to avoid that, avoiding coping mechanism, in order to avoid that, then we turn into perfectionism because we think that that's the way now that I'm going to compensate. And perfectionism can be, of course, workaholism. They're very related. They're specific. There's an overlap there. But thanks to that comment, I wanted to emphasize as well that perfectionism is not only about work. Perfectionism is not only about work-related issues and how hard you try and about your... Okay, just some books. It's not only about how much you try at work and whether you get promotion or not. It's also about other areas of our lives. Perfectionism is a mindset. And of course, this mindset covers many areas of our life. So we can be perfectionists as parents. We can be perfectionists as partners in our relationships. We can be perfectionists. So it's not about only work. And now that we're going to talk about characteristics of perfectionists, I can explain how we can. I can give you examples from different areas so that you can see. Let me see any other comment. I used to proudly wear the perfectionist badge in the past, but I have learned it the hard way since, and thankfully I have learned to be nice, maybe to myself, since recently, and learning not to be so hard on myself. Great, fantastic. That's what we are all aiming at. Hey Vasya, congratulations for your work. Do you think that most perfectionists realize that they're perfectionists? Yeah, I think more or less we do know. I don't know. Is it a safe way to realize someone he's toxic perfectionist without psychotherapy? Well, we're not doing psychotherapy right now, right? So if somebody wants to learn about perfectionists, there are many sources out there that they can find about that. And I'm not the first one who's talking about the toxic and the healthy perfectionism. There are many people that they have been talking about that. Actually, now you remind me of a study. It was from, how do you remember the names? Otto and Ruber, something like that, the name, I don't remember exactly, two scientists, and they made the distinction between the perfectionistic strivings and the perfectionistic concerns. In other words, the perfectionistic strivings are the healthy perfectionism, and the perfectionistic concerns are the toxic perfectionism. They have talked about the difference between these two already years ago. So the strivings, of course, is all the nice things about the perfectionist, which is the striving for excellence and the growth and the acceptance and, of course, the self-care. But the perfectionistic concerns are more about the rumination and the anxiety and the self-beating up and the self-punishment that comes together with the toxic perfectionism. So the distinction has already been made. Learn to be tender, loving, and care with myself. Perfect. Gender lens on perfectionism. I think that we both suffer, but in a different way from perfectionism. So maybe there are different areas that women suffer more from perfectionism and men more. But I'm not sure about that, so I'm not going to say something that I'm not certain. But I am going to take a look and find more answers and studies about that. 24th century pushes us to become more and more perfectionist due to its high societal standards such as beauty success. Yes, and I will keep that question because we're going to discuss about that in the roots of perfectionism. Shall we start now by talking about a few characteristics? So what I did, as I said before, I made a guide, and this is the guide that you see people that they are on the Facebook and LinkedIn. You can see a ticker, and you can see that you can get your free guide, How Much of a Perfectionist Are You?, that I created, and I put there 30 characteristics of perfectionism. And if you want, you can get it for free. You can have free access to that, lifetime access. And you can understand more about perfectionism and see which are the characteristics that define the mindset of a perfectionist. So we're not going to talk about all these 30 today because we don't have time for that. But let's talk about a few of them. Can you give me some ideas before I start with my characteristics? What do you think is a characteristic of being a perfectionist? What is black and white thinking, obsessiveness, to come to standstill, lack of self-care, need a high level of control, fear of failure, getting caught in the detail, constant stress, high standards, never feeling that you're doing things right. Yes, anxiety, less confident. Yeah. Never good enough feelings, procrastination, rumination, negative. Okay, now I need to finish this presentation because you said it all. Exactly, there are all these things that you mentioned. Seeking external approval rather than focus on internal needs, low self-esteem, testing scenarios in our heads, negative thoughts, no food, fear, anxiety. Great. If we have all of them, can we accept as perfectionist? Good point. So we're going to talk about these characteristics, and we will try to think about them not in all or nothing terms. You're not going to think, well, I do have that characteristic or I don't have it, because maybe you have it, but it's not so strong. Or maybe you keep it under control. You realize it sometimes. It's not that intense. It's not blocking your life or your happiness. So think about it, every characteristic in shades, not in black and white, but in shades, in a degrees, as a continuum. Do I have it? Is it strong? Does it block my life? Does it sabotage my life? Think about it in those terms. And maybe, I think we're going to talk about these characteristics, and maybe we have all of them, but they're not so strong. And maybe we're not toxic perfectionists, but you can see it here and there, but not on serious, let's say, issues in our life or in major life areas. So, as you said before, somebody more than one of you said that fear of failure, fear of mistakes, that's one of the most important ones. A perfectionist is afraid of mistakes. And that doesn't mean that a perfectionist doesn't make mistakes. Let's not confuse one with the other. They make a lot of mistakes, not more than the rest of the people. They make mistakes, but at the same time, they don't like it. And why they don't like it? Because they think that failure is a permanent is a permanent trait on your skin, is a permanent tattoo on your skin that doesn't go away. And people will see you and they remember your failure and not all the rest. They think that failure is permanent and mistakes are unforgivable. That's why they don't like it. They don't see the human nature of a mistake, not to mention that they don't see the lesson learned in a mistake, the possibility for growth in a mistake. No, they see it as a disgrace. They see it as something really negative about their identity, and that's why they don't like it. And what happens because they don't like it, as you can understand, and you already mentioned it, is that they ruminate a lot, not only after they make a mistake, but also before. What if I make a mistake? And what if I say the wrong thing? And what they notice that I haven't completed that section? And what if somebody says that you should try and include another paragraph in your report? Oh my God, that's awful. So they're thinking about all this worst case scenario so much. And that's why we say that perfectionism is also related with sleeping problems. How can you sleep with that? I mean, your whole life is going into 100 times of repetition before you go to sleep. Of course, that's really difficult to rest and to have a proper sleep. So the perfectionism and sleeping problems are very much related. Fear of failure, fear of mistakes. And there's of course, doesn't make sense, an irrational opinion or belief that if I think about the possible mistake 150 times, maybe it will not happen, or maybe I will not be prepared. But as you can understand, of course, through all this stress that a perfectionist is going through, of course, they're going to focus on an area that they will forget something else. So it's possible that, yes, they will avoid this thing that they have thought for 100 times, but they will make a mistake on something else. So that's another characteristic of a perfectionist. The priorities, very unbalanced priorities, that they don't know what's important and what's not. They cannot think clearly what needs my energy and my time right now and what I can put off for later, and or what I can put aside or what I can let go completely. All needs equal attention and equal focus. And of course, they understand that. And looking back, they say, well, indeed, I shouldn't have paid so much attention and spent so much time in finding a perfect recipe for bean soup to give it to my colleague who asked for it and actually spent 2 hours for that. I should have told them to, just take this link or look for it for 5 minutes and then that's it. Why did I spend 2 hours on that? They know it, they understand, but not in the moment that they are in there. So they believe that a lot of things depend on little requests from other people. And now that I said that, perfectionists, they tend to be people pleasers. What I mean that they want to keep the perfect facade. They want to show to other people that they can keep it together, that they can handle all of the tasks and their responsibilities of theirs, but also the other people's. And when somebody asks them for a favor or for some help and support at work, they say yes, of course. Not only because they want to keep the title of the good guy, of the kind person, of the polite person, but also because they don't want to admit that I have too much on my plate and I cannot handle it. They absolutely, that's for them as admitting failure. They cannot say I cannot handle it. So they prefer to say yes and to squeeze their schedule, to squeeze their agenda, and maybe sleep less and maybe skip a meal than to say no, I'm sorry. So as you can understand, perfectionism and boundaries, they don't get along so much. Another one, high standards. Of course, that should be one of the firsts. High standards. They have high standards for everything. Whatever they start in their life, whatever they commit, even if it's something work related, a project, even if they want to start a business, even if they want to start writing a book, even if it's starting a relationship. I told you, it's not about work. A relationship. They have really high standards for that, for everything that they start. And what happens with this high standards is that it's like a moving target. You never reach it. They're unrelenting. So the moment that they're really close to reaching the initial goal that they have, they move it, they minimize their success, and they continue working with the same pace towards the second one, the next goal. To give you an example, from my field, not the psychology, but more about the entrepreneurial field. You start a business and initially you have 0 clients and you're like, oh my God, the moment that I will have 10 clients, I'm going to be so happy. When you're reaching 9 clients, you have already minimized this goal and you're like, yeah, I mean, 9 clients, it's not that important. Only when I have 100 clients, I'm going to be important and I am going to be worthy in my field. And they keep working. And of course, not to mention, no celebration, no success, no win. That was nothing. Like, of course, people have 1,000 clients. Those people they need to celebrate, not me that I have 10. So they continue working. And then the next goal, as we said, was 100 clients. So they are around 1995. I mean, the numbers that I use are very, it's an example. They're around 1995 and they are bound to reach the next goal. Do you think that they feel happy and satisfied and accomplished? No, indeed. Because they have already minimized that. They have already compared themselves to the next goal and to another person who is doing so much better. And they have 10,000 clients. Who am I to go and celebrate for the, what did they say, for the 100 clients that I have? Of course, that's not worthy of celebration. Just keep a low profile. So no celebration, no happiness, no joy there. We keep on working and we put the next goal. So you see that the goals and the standards are already always rising. And as I said, of course, that's really exhausting. And at the same time, what I said is like that they don't celebrate. They don't think that what they did is important. They really minimize it. And okay, it's okay if we do it once or twice, but seeing the big picture, what is left from all this effort, these moments of celebration, these accomplishments of these small steps, this is what is worth in seeing the big picture of whatever you're doing. Either you're starting a business, a company, or either you're trying, you're raising kids, or you're writing a book, whatever you're doing. These little moments of I wrote 10 pages, or we got the prize of whatever, like the small prize, the first prize of something big. These are the moments that they're worth it. These are the moments that we're going to remember, but not for a perfectionist, because he says, no, not now, later. Oh, and now that I said later, of course, what he said before, procrastination, yeah, of course, because it goes together with perfectionism. It's like almost synonyms, perfectionism and procrastination. It's very related to what my friend from Athens says, Mihaly says before, that there are some emotional wounds there, or there's something emotional that is blocking us, and we are coping through perfectionism or procrastination. What is happening there? A perfectionist is choosing to procrastinate because what he has committed is too big. Remember what we said before about the high standards? It's too big. So they are now at 0 or 2 and they want to go to 1,000. That can be very overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming. How am I going to go there? I'm thinking about all the effort that I need to put, and that's really huge. That's impossible to go. This impossibility, this scenario of impossible, it's really emotionally draining and overwhelming. So emotionally, they're feeling blocked at that moment. And of course, another reason why they procrastinate is what we said before, fear of failure. They're ruminating in their head. Okay, I have no idea about what I'm going to start. It's a book. What if I fail? What I'm doing all this for nothing and nobody will read my book? What if I write something and people will make fun of it and it will be like a joke and I will receive really bad reviews? So again, another overwhelming emotional burden that they are adding to themselves. And of course, how can you find motivation to write if you have already thought of the worst case scenario? So the fear of failure pushes them to procrastinate. Of course, procrastination is a break from this stress. Procrastination is a relief, a very temporary relief from all this emotional burden. At least I can go and do something else or play video games or offer myself a break. That's what happens with our brain. But we know that this is not happening because what we need to do is still at the back of our head. So procrastination is a coping mechanism for something that is emotionally really overwhelming and really stressful. The moment that we resolve the emotional pressure, it's the moment that we will be unblocked. It's the moment that we will not need to procrastinate anymore. So another one. Let me see what's the time. Okay. I will take a look at the comments. Yes, need to celebrate small wins. Exactly. Another one, celebration. We said it. Which one shall I choose? Oh, yeah, the last one, because there's so many, but we can talk for hours here. The last one is that they don't reach out for help. Of course, reach out for help. It's not happening for a perfectionist for many reasons. One is because that's admitting failure. That's admitting that I cannot do it by myself. And of course, that means that they lose face. That means that they are admitting defeat. That's one reason. Another reason is that they believe that in order for me to be worthy of the success of this project, whatever it is, I need to do it by myself. If I collaborate with somebody else, well, that's a half success. And half success is not perfect. Almost perfect equals failure for a perfectionist. The same thing is like a half success or a success that it's being created via collaboration with somebody. It's the same thing. It's not a success. So they want to get the full credit. They want to be the ones that they struggled and they suffered, and that's why they deserve all the credit and all the approval that they will get. So that's why it's really difficult for them to reach out for help. And also because they don't want to be burdened to other people. They don't want to add to other people because they think that their request will be too much for them and they will add on their already heavy schedule. So you can see again the pleasing element that we said before. So let me see the comments that they keep coming. Saying no. Wait a minute. Let me see. Oh, there are many. How can we forgive the mistakes? Yeah, but forgiveness is a really big chapter for perfectionists. I love that word, and I'm going to keep that because that's something that we will talk about when we'll talk about the healthy perfectionism. Book. Somebody asked for a book. How can I find a book with the book with the characteristics? Do you mean the guide that I said? The guide about the characteristics, you can find it at academy.antiloneliness.com. There's a free guide with the characteristics, the 30 characteristics that I put together over perfectionist. And it's a questionnaire that you can fill in, but also there are 30 videos that you can watch with my analysis on each one of them. For you, forever. What else? Failure is the first step to success. Fantastic. Exactly. One of the things that we need to do, one of the things that it's on our plan to change perfectionism is to change these beliefs, these cognitions that we have in our head, that failure is detrimental, failure is a stamp on your forehead. And we need to change them with something like that, like Nisaf is saying, failure is the first step to success. That's what we need to say to ourselves many, many times. Yesterday, I was in a workshop. I was giving a workshop about failure. And there was a person there, and he asked me, what if we say these things like failure is the first step to success, but then in our head, we also say, yeah, okay, I don't believe that. Sure. That's a very good point. We're not going to believe these thoughts in the beginning because the old beliefs, like failure stays with you and everybody will remember that you failed and people will laugh at you and you are a failure, all these beliefs, they are deeply rooted because we have been thinking about them for decades, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 decades. Years. They're really deep. The new ones, failure is the first step to success. Failure is temporary. Failure is not about your identity. It's not about your personality. Failure is about, failing is only about what you're doing. It's not about your being. All these new beliefs, they're like a tiny little seed that we just planted. Of course, there's a difference. The other ones, like they have a really strong magnet. They are really deeply rooted. And of course, we're going to believe them immediately, automatically. But the first ones, the new ones, we're going to be like, no, I don't believe this. No, of course. But we need to spend a lot of time cultivating these thoughts. And that's why you hear a lot about journaling and you hear about writing your thoughts. You're writing about writing affirmations. That's the purpose of it. By writing, we are cultivating and we are watering the new seed. And we need that. We cannot function with the old ones, with the old beliefs. That's really exhausting. What else? Focusing on the priorities, that's really important. That how can we say no in a healthy way? That's really important. It's about boundaries, of course. And there's also another belief that people that say no are not kind. But we are now changing that you can say no and still be kind. One doesn't cancel the other. One doesn't negate the other. What else? Saying no, there's so many messages. I mean, I have to select. I have to, randomly select. Saying no is another kind of stress and brings more anxiety. Yeah, of course. For perfectionist, saying no brings more anxiety. We need to celebrate small wins. Perfectionism is an illness of our society, indeed. A gratitude journal is a great way to start celebrating small wins. Exactly, as I said, yeah. 3 small things, for example, like they say here in the chat, 3 small things daily that you're proud of. Yeah, let's start with something like that. It doesn't need to be something extraordinary. We should accept its reality. We not to notice how harming perfectionism is, and in order to completely get rid of that. Our emotional, can you please, or academy? Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Jay, that you put it in the chat box. Failure is success. It's a success, says Team. It's really hard to accept. Yeah, I know that. But failure is part of success, indeed. And we are allowed to fail. That's another one from Team. We are allowed to fail. I mean, there's no chance. There's no choice here that, you can choose not to fail. We are going to fail massively, and nobody is exempt from that. All right. So what I'm going to discuss next is the roots. And you already mentioned a few times about the roots. Where did this start? I'm going to go to society next, but I'm going to start with the usual suspect, which is parents, childhood. there is a significant, let's say, connection between the way that we have been raised and and perfectionism. And I can tell you, it's not only about our parents, but it's also about what we copied from them. So, yes, maybe you had very critical, highly critical parents, judgmental parents, that they controlled you, that they minimized your successes, and you didn't say, I'm proud of you, and they were not happy with your wins. And they only focused on your mistakes, and they were always grumpy because you're not doing good enough. Yes, maybe that's what happened. Or uh, maybe what happened is that your parents were also perfectionists themselves. They were overachievers. They had very important jobs and they were working in high positions. And you could hear them talking about their jobs all the time and having a lot of stress, and many people depending on them, and huge responsibilities, and all these things. And you could actually sense it, even though you were a small child. You could sense it that this is important. What my mom is doing, or what my dad is doing, must be really important. So it's probable that you have got it from them, like you copy that, you saw them. And that's a perfectionism that we learn in a very indirect way. We get the message that if my mom or my dad are so great and they're doing something so great, I'm not going to do something less than this. I have to follow their example. And of course, that's something that a child doesn't think in these words, but this happens in a very subconscious way. Um, what else about the parents? Oh, yeah, also that the fact that maybe our parents had their own unfulfilled dreams. Remember that we said that a perfectionist is afraid of failure and they're avoiding risks and getting out of their comfort zone. Maybe our parents, they had their own dreams. They wanted to become artists, or they wanted to become pilots or whatever, but they didn't. They choose a safe path. They choose something that would provide for the family. And they had to put their dreams aside. So these unfulfilled dreams, they are projected to the child, maybe. And the parents, and also subconsciously, they push their child to do something, to not be afraid, to risk, in a way that they're pushing them even before they're ready. They're pushing them without giving them the emotional or practical skills in order to do that. So maybe that's also a possibility. Now, it's not only about parents, eh? It's also about the circumstances in our life when we were children. I have also met perfectionists that they didn't, it was not only their parents who were perfectionists, maybe they had some characteristics, but they lived in an area that it was really dangerous, or they survived through a major loss or trauma during their childhood, and it was not related with the parents. It was something else, something external. But still, the loss of safety, the loss of security during that very fragile, sensitive age has made them think that I have to be perfect in order to compensate for the safety and the security that the world around me cannot provide me. So I have to become a perfect student, or I have to tidy up my room all the time, and I have to work really hard so that we will never be poor again. Whatever was the traumatic experience that they went through. So it's not only about parents. Let's broaden a little bit our perspective. It can be also about the circumstances when we were children. And let's go to what you said before, society. Yes, society, and I start with school, focuses a lot on achievements. And I remember, all this terror that we were subdued when we were children and we were students, that you have to get the best grades, you have to succeed in all the classes and be the best students, otherwise you're going to be a failure in life. That was, absurd. Like, that was crazy. Why all this terrorizing for students? And the fact that they were talking to us in such polarizing ways, such extreme ways, that if you're not good at school, you're not going to be good at life. No, I know many people, many classmates that they were not so good, they were not great, they were not A students, but they're doing great in their life. So that's all these, like these terrorizing conspiracy, whatever theories that they were putting on us. And we can also blame perfectionism for school and our teachers and all these system that cultivated us that mindset. And of course, society, as you said, the focus on success, the focus on beauty, that we need to be beautiful, and all the magazines. And of course, it's good news that this starts to change slowly. Um, but also, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he told me that I am now between jobs, but I don't dare to go and take a look at LinkedIn. Everybody there is posting about their successes, and I'm proud of that. And I'm grateful for this. And look what I've achieved. Oh, everybody is putting their achievements all the time. And of course, that we are all hiding our mistakes. We're all hiding our failures. Nobody's talking about that. Or at least now this is also changing. So, of course, these expectations from society and are something that has been imposed to us in a very subconscious way. Do you believe that social media and plays a role with to perfectionism? What do you believe? Yeah, Jay says yes. Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. Yeah. Social media, social media is a mess created by perfectionists. Okay. Nice. My opinion, and you don't need to believe the same to agree with me. My opinion is that indeed social media enhances perfectionism. It doesn't create perfectionism, but enhances. We already have something that it's being triggered. We already have a part of us that is really perfectionist, and it's being triggered through social media because we see also again all these nice images and all these filtered photographs. Everything is fantastic. Everybody's posting how much fun they had and how perfect they are and how well they coping. Um, and and then we think, like, oh my god, am I the only one who's suffering? Am I the only one who doesn't know what to do or cannot make any decisions right now? And I'm really confused. But the reality is that we all have that, but nobody dares to talk about that. And I understand that, of course. We are not going to go and spread depression and bad news all the time, but we need a little bit of balance. All this projection of the perfect image, it's not helping us. And there are many studies that they show, teenagers, that they get depression from all these social media exposure and all these perfect images. So we need a break from that. Like, it's enough. Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk like real human beings. Let's talk about with real words, not I'm doing fantastic and I'm the best only, and I love my friends and my husband, and they are all the best, and nobody is imperfect. Let's put a little imperfection of there. We really need it. It will help us soothe a little bit our soul. Um, so we're almost 9 o'clock. And this is what we promised to do today, to talk about perfectionism. I can talk about perfectionism for hours. And that's also something that I promised to do. But this was an introduction to perfectionism. This was an introduction to understand perfections, to understand the difference between the healthy and the toxic one. And of course, when you understand the toxic one, you can understand what is the opposite, what we need to cultivate even more. But of course, the discussion doesn't end here. We wanted to understand the perfectionist in order to protect our mental health and in order to prevent us or recover from anxiety and depression. That's the goal, in order to start living instead of stressing, instead of exhausting, instead of burning out, to start living. And being human and having proper days and proper relationships and a balance in our life, and to stop beating ourselves up all the time. That's the most important goal. Um, and to protect what is important to us. And we need to protect our relationships, not only our relationship with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. And we need to disconnect our happiness from our doings, because that's the perfectionist. I'm happy when I'm doing, when I'm achieving. We need to disconnect our happiness, our joy, our inner peace, if you don't like the word happiness, our inner peace from the doing, and to connect it with the being, with our state of being, with our feeling, with how we're feeling. And that's the purpose of the conversation, of the discussion today. It's a huge topic, of course, as I said, I can talk about it for hours. Make sure that you get the guide, because I have these characteristics that we talked today, and even more, 30 characteristics of a perfectionist with their analysis. And you can watch them and you can share them with your friends. It's for free and it's for a lifetime access. If you think that you are a severe case of perfection or a toxic perfection, or you have understood that there are some strong perfectionistic characteristics on you and you want to change, consider participating in the workshop that we have in 2 weeks on the 20th of April. And it's called The Trap of Perfectionism, The Joy of Imperfection. And we are talking there about not only about what we said today, but how perfectionism is costing us and how we can turn it around into a healthy perfectionism. And we're going specifically to talk about how to turn it around by using emotional steps, cognitive steps, and practical steps. So if you feel that this profile matches your profile, and you feel that you would benefit from getting more advice and more tips on that, join us. Feel free to join us in this workshop. And let me see if I have any questions for the last few minutes. Eleni says that I deleted my account on Instagram and created a new one with nature and Christmas focused accounts. Two things that relax me. Exactly. You are the one that choose what you want to see on Instagram or on social media. We're not just victims or just the poor recipients of what they want to show to us. Social media, they never show mistakes and negative life events. Yeah, exactly. Which is unrealistic. Yeah, everything seems unrealistically perfect. What else? Any question? Any question? Do I have a chance to do this therapy by myself, reading books, acting like a psychologist? It depends. It depends on, usually for me, there's a thin line. The distinction between whether I can help myself or I need to ask help from somebody else is that if I try by myself, and then it doesn't change, nothing changes, or I become worse, then I need to talk to somebody else. I need to get support from a psychologist. What I usually say is, and keep it in mind, also psychologists have their own psychologist. I also have my therapist, because we're all human beings. And at some point in our life, that we are in so much trouble and in so much confusion, and we struggle so much that we cannot be objective observers of our lives. We cannot give advice. We are very confused. So we need somebody outside to help us. And that's okay. That's really human. It doesn't mean that we are weak or we don't know enough about psychology. So let's get rid of shame related with therapy. Try yourself. And now that you said books, I am going to add in this guide another PDF document with literature so that I can suggest a couple of books about perfectionism. Feel free to read books and get the most that you can get out of there. And maybe you will not need therapy, of course. Participate in discussions like that. That's also, awareness. We need to start with awareness. And that can be helpful for somebody and somebody not, because they will need more There's no right or wrong here. Everybody's doing their best every single day. Let me see if there's another question. There are so many messages, which means that I'm going to skip for sure, and I'm really sorry about that. Thank you. You made me think a lot of things. Thank you very much for being here. That was really brave. A friend of mine said, start beating yourself up with a feather and stop hurting yourself with a baseball bat. That's nice. And then I only realized how hard I was on myself. Exactly. Perfectionism is really being harsh on yourself. Right. I am going to save the chat box. So whatever question is there, I am going to add it on the email. I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to add some responses. I know that there's a lot to talk about and we didn't talk about steps or chains. I know that. And it was not on the schedule. Today it was only about awareness on what is not, and the roots and the characteristic of perfectionism. But that's the treatment and the change is a very huge chapter. And we're going to be here and we're going to organize another chat again, and we're going to take another piece of this pie, the perfectionist pie, and we're going to continue the discussion. Thank you very much for being here. It was really great meeting you. And although I was really distracted, or I was really, like I had my phone here and another camera and my laptop, I managed to take a look at everything that you have said, and it was a really wonderful experience. Thank you very much. It was really nice to meeting all of you, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. And now it's time for rest, okay? Have a nice evening. Take good care of yourself.